is over though. Today we are going to be talking about the disappearance of Morgan Nick. In an AY magazine article about Morgan Nick, it says, quote, "An old superstition says, if you make a wish when you see the first lightning bug of the year, the wish will come true. But to Colleen Nick, lightning bugs remind her of the night her 6-year-old daughter Morgan went missing." Today we will be talking about the disappearance of Morgan Nick. This is one of those cases that has just stuck with me for years since I first heard about it. On the day that Morgan Nick went missing, her and her mother, Colleen, left their home in Ozark, Arkansas, and drove to this tiny rural town about 30 miles away called Alma, Arkansas. At the time, the population was less than 4,000 people, and while the town itself was incredibly small, Interstate 80 runs right through it. Colleen and Morgan had gone to Alma to watch some Little League baseball games with friends who lived in Alma. They drove straight to the ballpark to meet with their friends, and I think this was like some kind of tournament that lasted all day with back-to-back games. The final game started much later than it was supposed to. It started just after 10 p.m. There were about 300 spectators at this game, and these people were very invested in the game. People were actively watching, they were cheering, they were rooting for their team. The crowd was very engaged. Morgan was wearing a green Girl Scouts t-shirt, denim shorts, and white sneakers. She had spent the entire day just kind of hanging out, playing near her mother. Morgan, who was a little girl who loved to laugh and kind of play games and pranks, spent that particular night trying to sneak down under the bleachers to tie her mom's shoes, like her shoelaces, together without her noticing. Sometime around 10:30, some other kids who were also playing at the ballpark asked Morgan if she wanted to go and catch fireflies with them. I guess it was very common in this area for the kids to go up on this hill and kind of play during the games because their attention spans were a little bit shorter. They didn't care so much to watch 9 innings of a Little League game. Morgan was kind of a shy kid, and at first she wasn't really sure if she wanted to go, but eventually she decided she did. It was late, it had been a long day, and so she asked her mom if she could go join these kids. Her mom wasn't really comfortable with the idea of Morgan playing out of her line of vision. But I guess one of the other moms told Colleen she'd be fine. The kids always go over there to play. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. There are so many cases that I research where people had a bad feeling. Parents in particular, they kind of have an intuition and they don't want their kids to go, but then their baseball game ended right around 10:45 p.m. So Morgan has only been playing with these kids for like 15 minutes. When the game ends, everyone, is clapping and they're packing up all their stuff, and Jessica and Ty notice and they run back to the bleachers. But Morgan wasn't with them. When Colleen asked Jessica and Ty where Morgan was, they said she was sitting in the parking lot dumping sand out of her shoes. And then they don't really know where she went after that. Even though this is a safe, small town, Colleen is already panicking, not knowing where Morgan is, and not being able to spot her right away. She takes off running toward the parking lot where Morgan was last seen, and she's thinking and hoping that maybe Morgan saw that the game was wrapping up and just went to the car to wait for her mother. But when she gets there, there's still no sign of Morgan. Colleen begins looking around, asking everyone they passed if they had seen her daughter, this little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, but no one had seen Morgan since she was dumping her shoes out. As she is frantically searching for her daughter, the ballpark is emptying out, so it would be almost easier to spot a little girl as the crowds are leaving, but there's just no sign of her. Soon, other parents and even the coaches from the Little League game are helping search for this little girl. Luckily, someone had a cell phone, and this is 1995, so this is very lucky. So someone gives their cell phone to Colleen, and she calls the police. The police arrive just minutes later. No one saw Morgan leave the ballpark. Police don't know if she left with someone or if she left on her own. She was just gone. Police questioned the two little kids who had been playing with Morgan, Ty and Jessica, to see if they could coax some information out of them. They told the officers that a creepy man had come up to them and he had talked to them. And right away, this man becomes a suspect, and whatever he said to the three kids was never released to the public. That was information that police kept to, help with the integrity of their investigation, in case they had any false confessions or anything like that. The reason this man was immediately a suspect is because of the time frame that Morgan went missing. She went missing in a 15-minute time frame, and most of this 15 minutes, her mom was keeping an eye on her, although she would look away and get drawn into the game and lose sight of her daughter here and there. So this man approached the children and talked to them. But the weird thing is, in this ballpark full of 300 people, no one else remembers seeing this guy. He seems to be missing, along with Morgan, and I feel like the description of this guy, you would remember him. Ty and Jessica described him as having a short beard. He was between 23 and 38 years old, 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, slicked back, dark hair, and he was wearing denim cut-off shorts, no shirt, and no shoes. seen this guy after Morgan went missing. There was a woman witness at the ballpark who said she did see this guy talking to the kids, and she gave police a description pretty similar to the one that Ty and Jessica had given them. However, she hadn't seen him up close. She had kind of noticed him from afar talking to the children. Jessica, Ty, and this female witness seemed to be the only people who saw this guy in the ballpark. So this makes me wonder if maybe he was just kind of loitering outside the ballpark and never actually entered. I don't know. A sketch of the man, as well as a vehicle description, were released shortly after the abduction. Witnesses at the time said this man may have been seen near a red pickup truck with a white camper. This camper had windows, but they were covered by curtains, and there was also possibly damage to the right rear end of this pickup truck. There were also reports that the truck had Arkansas license plates. The thing that's really scary about this truck's description, and the camper in particular, is this guy could have been like a nomad. He could have been heading anywhere. Morgan Nick has never been seen or heard from since that night. Morgan's case has been tied to other attempted abductions in the area around the same time. In fact, on the day Morgan went missing, much earlier in the day at a laundromat in Alma, a bearded man tried to pull a 9-year-old girl out of the laundromat and into his truck, but a bystander was there and stopped the abduction. Also, on the day Morgan was abducted, a 4-year-old girl in Alma was grabbed by a stranger. This little girl started screaming at the top of her lungs, and her mother was able to run out and save her. This suspect also resembled Morgan's abductor. On June 10th, there was another attempted abduction of a 9-year-old girl in Fort Smith, which is just 10 miles away. This girl told police that a man who she described to kind of look like Morgan's abductor tried to get her to go into a men's restroom with him, but she wouldn't. Tips flooded into police, and they did follow up on every single tip, but they would either end up being like not credible, or they would be dead ends. There was a gardener at some point who called in and claimed that he saw the suspect holding onto the wrist of a girl who looked just like Morgan, and police rushed to the area and did like this massive search, and then this guy admitted he was lying, so there was a lot of that going on. So for the 6 weeks that followed Morgan's disappearance, her parents basically lived in the firehouse in Alma so they could be close to the investigation and go out searching for their daughter every day. In fact, Colleen ended up moving to Alma so she could stay close and just always know what was happening. In 1995, there were 2 sightings of Morgan with a man in North Carolina. They resulted in a sketch being circulated, but nothing ever came of these 2 sightings. Then, on September 12th, 1995, 3 separate people in Payson, Arizona, all called police to report seeing Morgan Nick. They said the little girl looked exactly like the photos they Morgan's case. They had received a credible tip from a narcotics officer, and 1 month later they searched this trailer and the area surrounding it again with cadaver dogs. They searched again 7 years later in 2017, and a cadaver dog did alert to a well in the area, and they searched the well and they never found anything. The trailer home had been owned by a convicted sex offender who was in prison at the time of all of these searches. And I guess this tip didn't specify that anything was linked to Morgan, but they did have this sex offender on their radar, so they searched the area because of the proximity from Alma to the Oklahoma state border. In 2018, there was an article written in Today explaining why the second composite sketch had been released. In this article, it says that the first composite sketch was not based off of the abduction of Morgan Nick. So I guess this sketch was made by talking to all of these other kids who had been, attempted to be abducted. Remember, there had been 3 attempted abductions that same day in Alma. That was where they got the information for the sketch they released in Morgan's case. At the time, police had nothing else to go on. They had 2 children, witnesses, and that was basically it. So they used the other people who had almost been abducted to form a sketch and released that. Also, in this article, it says that FBI profilers had conducted early on that the shirtless man who was seen talking to the kids was not likely a suspect. They thought this man didn't actually belong to the red truck that they believe Morgan was abducted in. I guess they do believe she was taken in this red truck, but not by the shirtless man. According to the profilers, this guy was way too casual. He was barely dressed to be from out of state. He was likely a local, and that's why all the people at the ballpark didn't see him, because they actually did see him, but they knew him, so they didn't think anything of it. Morgan Nick is still missing. Nothing has ever been recovered in connection with her case. She really did just vanish, but somebody, somewhere, knows something. Colleen Nick has said she still has hope that her daughter will be found alive. She said, "You can't give up until you know for sure. I would never be able to look my daughter in the eye and tell her I gave up." Here is an age-progressed photo of Morgan Nick. If you have any information about Morgan Nick, contact the Alma Police Department at 479-623-3333 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. I just quickly want to cite my sources